you feel like no matter how hard you try, your mind is working against you, this might be why. You know, we're always told to stay disciplined, to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. You know, we might have a few days where we listen to the good side of us and we do the good things that we know we should do, but then we end up self-sabotaging no matter what and telling this person who's trying to fucking stay consistent to just be consistent, to just discipline yourself, never works, because this is like telling the people on a leaking ship to just row harder, but the fucking ship's sinking, the ship's leaking. Rowing harder won't help with anything. How about we fix the constant tension between these two sides of you first? The truth is, once you achieve alignment and you fix yourself, essentially, you won't need more motivation and you definitely won't need any more discipline. And the model I'm about to show you has helped thousands of therapists over the world help their clients resolve their deepest issues and deepest wounds and overcome this constant battle that is within them. So if you're ready to finally be on your own side and stop being so conflicted once and for all, this video is for you. There's been a bunch of instances in my life where I set myself a very strict regimen, whether it's training, whether it's going monk mode on business. I set myself a plan, and I end up destroying it just a few days later. And I was left wondering, why do I constantly do this? Why do I feel like I'm stuck in a fucking cycle? And that led me to self-improvement and discipline, guys. Discipline is everything that will save you. And only when I realized that discipline still doesn't work for every single situation out there was when I started looking for deeper answers. And this is what brought me to the internal family system, or IFS, by this guy, Richard Schwartz. What Richard basically found out is that our personality, although it might seem like it's one true self, it actually has multiple voices, multiple people within it. And for me, this is what changed it all. This was such a super fucking helpful concept, because now I started understanding, just because I came to a conclusion on one thing, why I changed my mind a few days later, because I wasn't entirely aligned with all of the parts of myself. One part of me wanted to play video games with my friends to feel a sense of brotherhood. One part of me wanted to focus on business to get money and financial security. One part of me wanted to scroll on fucking Tinder to find a mate. I was divided the whole time. And what modern self-improvement tells us is that when we have desires like to play video games, like to scroll on Tinder, we should disregard it, because, you know, it's the lower self. It's something that shouldn't be there. But I'm here to tell you that evolution didn't make a mistake. Like, every single time that I talk about these kind of deeper concepts, it's there for a reason. Every single time your body comes up with, hey, we need to do X, or hey, we need to do Y, it isn't a logical approach to completely ignore it and focus on Z, because these come up for a reason. Now, the way Richard Schwartz conceptualizes of all of these things is our personality is basically made up of 4 parts, or at least 4 different types of people. The manager, the firefighter, the exile, and the self. And the key thing here is that Richard doesn't tell us to disregard any of them. All of them are here for a very, very good reason. What he tells us to do is to sit down, listen to all 4 parts of ourselves, to listen as if we were the CEO and make the best decision for the company, for all of us. What would happen if we completely disregarded our employees in a company? You know, they would go on strike, they would not show up to work, they would demand for a pay raise, they would cause disruption, they would screw up the whole team. And that's the exact same thing happening. That's why we have emotional outbursts. That's why we can't stay consistent with one routine, because someone isn't satisfied. So the question becomes, how can we make a system which satisfies all parts of us? How can we make something that is aligned with our vision of where we want to get to, but also integrates the lower parts of ourselves also? So in order to answer that question, we're going to go over every single person inside of ourselves, essentially. Pause on that one. We're going to talk about why they exist and what they want from us. And after that, we're going to talk about how we can negotiate with them to come to an agreement so that we finally don't feel like we're at war with ourselves. The first part that we're going to talk about is the manager. The manager is obsessed with control. It always negates risk when possible. The number one priority of the manager is to keep you safe above all else. It wants to avoid risk and be in control in every situation. The manager might sound like, we've got to lock in, we've got to go on monk mode to guarantee that we get what we want. We've got to make everyone happy, and let's make sure that we don't upset them, we don't say anything wrong. And the third example is, let's make the perfect plan before we start. We don't want to risk failure. This is kind of we call it the smarter part of the brain, and we don't call it like these bad things that we shouldn't listen to and the lizard brain, but it also falls quite short of being your true self. Only listening to the manager won't get you anywhere. Now, you probably know some people in your private life who give way too much of a voice for the manager. They're usually type of the people who work a 9 to 5, never enter anything that's risky, always clip the coupons at little, never enter any situation that they might lose control in. They don't like going to theme parks. They don't like being in situations where they're not in control. They can't really let go. They don't go on vacation that much. And also, as you can probably see with the perfect plan example, these types of people struggle with procrastination quite a lot. lot. They tend to be perfectionists. They tend to be overthinkers. So although the manager can keep things together and be on the better side of our psyche, listening to the manager all the time is definitely not the way to go. When I was trying to go on monk mode, it's probably the manager part of me who was trying to hold everything together. But as you've probably experienced before, and as I said in my example, it usually can't do that. And that is for the most part because of the Exile. The Exile's job is pretty much nothing. It doesn't necessarily have a job. Its job is to carry unresolved emotions on from the past, but it's not really fair to call it a job because it doesn't want to. It's just stuck in time. This part of you is the part of you that carries these unresolved emotions, the ones that you haven't tended to, the ones that you haven't processed and haven't talked about. It's usually described as shameful, scared, and powerless. It's reliving these wounds. It is the wounded part of you, often referred to as the inner child. The inner child is stuck back in the time when it is experiencing this trauma, this traumatic event, and every single time you have something that associates to it in the present time, in real life, that's when these kind of unresolved emotions come out and they have these outbursts. You can probably think of your own examples or people around you's examples of when their exile was speaking out. And if I were to give you an example about myself, it would probably be I had a very, very big fear of being seen, because it's quite a cringe story, but back in the day I used to play a lot of Minecraft, and I was also, although this itself is quite cringe to say, but I was quite good at it. I was playing PvP, like player versus player, and I was playing on servers like Kohi and Bad Lion. If you know what these servers are, like holy shit, you're an OG. But I was like playing PvP, like player versus player mode against a lot of people, and I was really, really good at it, but I was extremely young. I was like 12, 13 or 14 years old when I started going in, and my voice was high as shit. And I didn't really want to admit that I was young because I would end up getting bullied, and I know that other people who were young got kind of picked on. And I said that I was 3 years older than I currently was. So when I was 12, I said that I was 15, and that was like a bit more acceptable age. And that point, at every single moment when someone questioned if I was really that old because, you know, my voice is so low or something, I got really defensive because, you know, my identity, which was a fake identity, started being seen. And I was like, no. And I lived my life like this for 80 years. I would come home from school, I would play Minecraft, and I would have this identity that wasn't truly me. And just a few years ago, when I had a bad business venture with someone and they started cussing me out and they were like, you're this and you're that and you're this, and they started really picking on my identity and calling me out for who I am, which it was a very big overreaction from them. So they were probably speaking from their exile part, but that's a different story. I also felt like my exile was coming up. I also felt very, very shameful and powerless. And I was like, no. Even though I knew what the person was saying wasn't true, I had this emotional outburst and my stomach started like tingling, like, you know, when you get very, very anxious. And I had this sense that I couldn't fucking numb it down for the life of me. I was like, holy shit, why am I feeling this from something that I know is factually incorrect? I know this person doesn't know shit about me and what they're saying is entirely untrue, yet I'm feeling this bad thing because it elicits this trauma that I kind of experienced back in the day. Now, of course, trauma is a big word for this. I got called out by some people through fucking Minecraft on the digital screen, but it's an event like this, which is like seemingly unimportant, yet it's still significant enough to have this big reaction on you. For you, this could be that your parents didn't compliment you. For you, this could be that you have the bad breakup. For you, this could be pretty much anything, but any unresolved emotions that you are still, for some reason, still experiencing, this part of you is stuck in the past, this might come up and you might make bad decisions because of the exile. Some thoughts that might come from the exile might sound like this. You can't ask her out. Remember when Amanda brutally rejected you? Or you're all alone. No one's going to really understand you anyway. Or third, why are you trying? You'll disappoint like you always do. It's some unresolved emotions. Maybe you were like, maybe your parent told you that you're not enough. Maybe they didn't compliment you. Or in the second example, maybe you never really had a good friend in your life, and then you start feeding yourself these kind of thoughts like you're all alone, you'll never find love and connection. Or in the first example, you had a bad experience with a girl who rejected you, and now you think that is just your fucking fate. You're destined to have that happen to you. You might have noticed this, but the manager's biggest part in making sure that we're safe is actually prevention. It's making sure that the exile doesn't come out in the first place. It's making sure that we are risk averse, that we're not putting ourselves in situations where this guy might fuck everything up. But when he does come out and he does fuck everything up, that's when the third part of us comes out, which is the firefighter. His job is to make us feel good now. Well, scratch that. Not even to make us feel good, but to avoid pain at all costs. Every single time you do something which is to avoid pain, It isn't actually to gain pleasure right now. It's just because you're feeling discomfort, you're feeling bored, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling an emotion that you don't want to feel, and therefore you decide to lead into what we call dopamine for the most part, in the self-improvement kind of community. But it's basically just alleviation from pain, distraction from pain right now. This is what the firefighter wants, and it does pretty much anything that it has to do in order to get here. One firefighter thought that you could be getting is, why get out of bed when I could scroll on TikTok right now? Second one, let's order takeaway and binge Netflix. After all, we deserve a break anyway. Third one, let's watch some educational YouTube video instead of actually working. Now, these are very different examples, ladies and gentlemen, and I really need to understand why these are firefighter thoughts. The first one tackles just feeling like we don't have energy, feeling like we're apathetic, feeling like we're lethargic, not really wanting to put in any pain, put in any effort. Our mind is visualizing, oh yeah, but working it would be kind of boring, I don't know, kind of painful, I don't want to do that. But we can go onto TikTok and, we can feel a connection to people, we can have the dopamine circuits of our mind firing, and we're not going to feel this lonely, we're not going to feel this tired if, after all, we don't even require ourselves to exert any energy. Getting out of bed, we would get rid of the warmth and the comfort that we feel under the duvets and everything else that comes with it. So that's why we don't want to do that. The second one, ordering takeaway and binging Netflix. I mean, is there anything to say about this? And after all, we do deserve a break. That's what we tell ourselves. Binging Netflix and ordering takeaway is going to satiate us. It's going to be very, very nice. We feel hungry right now. Then we feel like, we're lonely. We want to entertain ourselves. We're feeling bored. All of these negative emotions we want to go away from. But even more importantly, maybe we already have something planned for tonight. And that you should be reading a book. You should be having this uncomfortable conversation. But you could give yourself a break because you've been working so hard. And that's exactly a firefighter thought. The firefighter's job is very, very similar to what Resistance's job is, according to Stephen Pressfield. He wrote The War of Art, and Resistance basically holds our identity together. Anything that might be challenging for us, anything that might take us out of what's currently comfortable for us, what again might cause some sort of pain, it resists it. And in this instance, firefighters do the exact same thing. And just to touch on this third one final time, pause on that, even just thinking actual work would cause me a lot of pain, and I know that even if I didn't do the work, it would cause pain even that way, because I would feel like I'm a failure for not being productive. What's the best middle path where I don't have to work and I don't have to feel bad about not working? It's doing something like this. It's convincing myself that I'm doing something productive, yet not being productive. Watching some educational YouTube videos, guys. Yes, it's learning, and even though it might be a bit learning, like, okay, you know what you should be doing. That's why you already have actual working as planned. That's why you have a deep work block like scheduled for yourself, yet you're not doing it. So this is the firefighter, and he will take you away from long-term growth like manager activities just for the sake of avoiding pain right now. The manager will understand that you need to kind of lock in, you need to go on monk mode, you need to kind of get rid of these momentary pleasures and momentary band-aid solutions in order to guarantee your safety and your survival long-term. The firefighter doesn't really think about that. He just wants to feel nice now. And the CEO of you is the self. The self is the captain of the ship. A good self is calm, compassionate, and curious. Curious to understand how the others feel and the why. This is probably the most important part of this whole video. It's curious to understand where all of the other parts are coming from. It's curious to understand how we can solve those wants and those needs. It doesn't shove them down the fucking toilet, just like these self-improvement videos are telling you to do, because just as if someone doesn't solve their emotional trauma, if someone is always telling themselves to be disciplined, you can only imagine what's going to happen. It doesn't work that way. If you have things inside of you which are in conflict, you best believe that ignoring those conflicts isn't going to solve them. So the best thing you can do is to be curious about why they're there, be compassionate and understanding, and calm when looking for a solution. This is what a good CEO does. Now, the biggest problem in the modern man's and woman's life is that we don't even listen to ourselves. We don't have a sense of self for the most part. The self is what contains information about, well, essentially who we are, the things that we like, the things that we don't like. It's literally as it sounds, the sense of self. Yet, not only are we detached from our sense of self as the common sense of self is used as a word, but also this kind of self isn't talked about that much. For these kind of thoughts, we don't listen to. So some thoughts that could come from the self are, I hear you're scared, and that's okay. We're going to do this one step at a time together. Second, we've done harder things before. This is no different. Third, we don't need to be perfect. Let's just do our best. We don't negotiate with ourselves like this. And when our self is talking, it's usually just magnifying one of the other parts. It's usually just like, yeah, you know, the firefighter's right. We do need to eat chocolate right now. Or it's like, yeah, the exile's right. I need to react right now, and I need to shout this person's head off, and yeah, they're so wrong for this and everything, da-da-da-da-da. It's never really a CEO. It's never really coming to an understanding. It's usually magnifying someone else. And Schwartz says that every single time you have someone speaking up, you need to be calm, compassionate, and curious in order to understand this person, where they're coming from, and how can we negotiate with them. Through which finally we get to the next part of the video, which is negotiating successfully with all of the different parts of you. The way you must negotiate with yourself is as follows. First of all, you need to identify who's speaking. You need to identify if it's an exile, you need to identify if it's a manager, or if it's a firefighter. Next up, you need to get curious. This is what this whole video is about. If you understand where this person is coming from, it's going to be much easier to serve them. It's going to be much easier to come to a conclusion. Most people just ignore them. They're like, you just want to go on TikTok because you're a degenerate, because you're a bad person. And this makes us feel fucking nice that, yeah, we're above you. But that's not the truth. All of us have cravings. All of us have needs for negating boredom. All of us have needs for not feeling lonely. All of us have needs for all of this stuff that is escaping bad feelings. And we like to feel better that, oh yeah, I'm better than you because I don't feel this bad way. Look at me. Yeah, I don't fucking get lonely, but we all fucking do. The question is, are you going to shove it down, or are you going to understand it? Because if you shove it down, it's going to come out. Eventually it's going to come out, and the sooner you can come to this realization that you need to actually be on your own terms with all of these feelings, the sooner you will be in alignment, and the sooner you'll realize that you don't need more discipline. But I digress. So, third, you need to give it what it wants. I repeat, you need to give it what it wants. This doesn't mean you need to go on TikTok right away. This doesn't mean you need to eat the candy bar. This doesn't mean you need to get all emotional and shout at the stranger that you meet. And it definitely doesn't mean that you need to go on monk mode right now. What it means is you need to make a deal with it. Just like you would in a company. If someone is unhappy about their pay, about their hours, you need to make a deal with them. You don't need to kick them out. You don't need to ignore them. Imagine if someone started talking to you, you're the CEO, and you just walked out the room. You just ignored them like they're not even fucking there. That's what you're doing to yourself. The way you make a deal is either you make a contract with them. And to make this simpler, let's just give you an example. Let's say the part of you who really, really feels at unease is because they are feeling lonely right now. And yes, you're working on yourself and you've just got out of a relationship, but this part of you really feels lonely and it's really worried about your potential as a partner for the future. You need to understand. You can't be like, oh yeah, it's just because you're horny. Oh yeah, it's just because you can't be without someone else. Yeah, fuck off and just fucking grind, because that's not going to work. What you need to do is actually understand it. So you might make a contract with this person and you might be like, well, I understand that, but the thing is, we just got out of a relationship. And I think it would be best for us and the rest of the people on the staff if we just focused, because that is the way which all of us will get what we want eventually. Now, this doesn't mean that we won't think about you or anything. It will just mean that for the next 1 month, we just feel like it wouldn't be a correct decision, but we can make sure that when that 1 month ends, we're going to go on Tinder. We're going to approach these girls. We're going to DM your fucking crush, whatever it may be. You need to elaborate some sort of contract. In this time frame, we're not going to do this, or we're going to do this other thing, and when that ends, we're also going to take this action. Imagine if your school didn't tell you if you were allowed back in school when the vacation ended, when the summer holiday ended. You would feel fucking stressed. You'd be like, wait, hold on, am I going to not have an education? Am I not going to be able to apply for any jobs? Because you didn't know. Now, as soon as your school tells you, okay, school's starting on the 3rd of September, you're like, okay, I'll go back to school. It's the same thing. This time, you're telling yourself, yeah, and I understand that, it's a really, really valid thing to worry about that. And once this term ends, when this period of time ends, then we're going to focus on this thing that you're worried about. If we don't tell ourselves anything and we're just like, yeah, relationships, fuck them, then we're going to be like, wait, hold on, when are we going to focus on relationships? That's a very valid reason to be lonely and curious and be like, wait, hold on, what the fuck? That's a very important thing to look out for in life, right? So don't shove it down. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Okay, we're not going to focus on relationships for the next few weeks, but make sure you actually tell yourself that instead of, oh yeah, it doesn't matter to me right now, because that's vague as shit. The next thing could be managing the means which by you achieve the certain thing. So your firefighter might be telling you that we need to play video games every single night to get the sense of brotherhood, to not feel lonely. But yourself can negotiate it that, okay, I understand, and I really do understand that, throughout the day you're rarely talking to people, and at night at least you want to have this sense of brotherhood. But the thing is, it's really not doing us any good, these video games. It's elevating our heart rate before we go to bed, which is fucking up our sleep. It's fucking up our dopamine system, which makes us less likely to lead to work in the future. So for this reason, we're going to replace this, but with watching streams or something, but with calling our friends and talking to them, with something other that gets this. So we're changing the means, we're not changing the ends. We're still getting to where this desire wants to go, but we're changing how we're going there. In all of these examples, we're giving the desire what it wants, because that is how to truly satiate it. That's truly how to not be in conflict with ourselves. We're just changing things about it which might upset the other board members. You know, when you're having a conversation with the team, when you're having a meeting, if you give everyone what they want unconditionally, the company's going to be ruined. But also if you ignore everyone, the company's going to be ruined. So you need to make deals with them. And the final version is to settle. Maybe if you do this part well enough, if you actually get curious and understand, maybe you don't need to do anything. Just having a simple conversation with the inner child and why it's sad and why it feels threatened can be enough to untangle the whole situation. After all, especially with the inner child, with the exile, these things that manifest into bigger things and like emotional outbursts and like, you know, traumatic reactions, they're all unresolved emotional issues, and the biggest thing you can do to solve them is to just settle them, is to just look at them deeply and get curious and understand it. If I was to look at myself in that situation when I told you that someone from my previous company was cussing me out and really looking at my identity, if I took myself 15 minutes and I meditated on the feeling and how it feels and I didn't run away from it and I understood that there is logically nothing about this person's statements, instead of just getting into this hyperactive mode like, hold on, that's not true, getting into this mode doesn't help. It still leaves all of the emotions unresolved. If you can get really curious and get really deep and pause on that, but if you can actually really understand the issue and come to terms with it and understand that maybe it isn't the most logical thing in the world, then you should be able to settle it. But let me give you a few examples. Maybe you felt such intense stress at one point in your life that you no longer entertain anything that might lead to stress. Here, your true self needs to step in and negotiate. Look, that thing that happened to us was really bad, and I understand that you're scared of stress, but we can't keep living like this. The rest of us aren't happy. We do occasionally need to feel stress in order for us to grow, but I can promise you that if that happens, we'll stop instantly and decompress. Let's say you approached your crush in high school and she posted about it in the group chat. Now, that can be very awkward, but the thing is, if we don't negotiate with this part of ourselves, the problem is every single time we try to approach an attractive girl in the future, this memory will keep coming up and our exile will not be happy with it. So our self needs to step in here and say, look, I understand that you wouldn't want me to approach anyone. I wouldn't want me to approach anyone either. But we've grown since. Not only will I have a much higher chance at succeeding, but even if it does go wrong, it won't hurt me as bad. And even if it does hurt me as bad, we'll face it head on. We won't let it leave any lasting wounds. We'll go on a walk straight after and we won't run away from the feelings this time. Does that sound like a deal? Let's say our coping mechanism as kids was that we binge ate. We ate all of the salty and sweet foods that we had in the pantry. And now every time life gets a bit too uncomfortable, we tend to binge ourselves into oblivion. Again, our self needs to step in and negotiate. Look, this is totally normal. Every time in the past when we felt bad, the food was always there and it really helped us take our mind off the negative experience. And I'm also very thankful to you for trying to protect me. I understand that is your only intention. But here's the thing, this food that we're binging on is slowly killing us all, and I can't let that happen. So here's my proposal. Next time we feel down, we'll call a friend, we'll listen to music, we'll go on a walk, whatever you want. This way, not only will we still have a crutch to lean on, but we will feel down less often, because now we're not poisoning our bodies anymore. If you can start spotting these patterns whenever these different sides of you start speaking up and negotiating with them, your rate of growth will be fucking scary. What's left for you to do now is to understand that this manifests in everyone's life differently. So whenever you try to lock in the next time and you try to give yourself rules and don't do this and don't play video games, guys, make sure you're getting all of your unmet needs met. So you don't have to necessarily give yourself this rule. You don't have to necessarily have to give yourself that rule. Whether it's telling yourself that you're not going to binge eat, whether it's telling yourself that you're not going to play video games, different people have different drugs of choice. That's what scientists use when they try to describe what kind of things we lean for whenever we are like on the boundaries of addiction. I personally have always had a problem whenever it came to binge playing video games or whatever the fuck you call it. If I played like one round of League, I'd instantly want to queue up for the next one. But I never really had the same problem with food. You might be the other way around. And I've thought about this for a long ass time, and it's two reasons. The less prevalent reason is because I'm lacking a sense of brotherhood and I'm lacking a sense of belonging, because I tend to be quite good at League and I tend to be like leading the team and shit. That gives me a lot of like I guess satisfaction to my ego. But the main reason is usually because I'm not making that much progress in bodybuilding, or I'm not making that much progress in business or some other area of life, I try to compensate, and my firefighter says, okay, we need to go up in LP. We need to go up in like the ranking system, which is in league, because we're not making any progress in any other area of life. My firefighter speaks up and he's like, wait, hold on. We're not making any progress. We're feeling bad. We can't feel bad. That's not a thing that we feel. That's not us. We don't feel bad. We're going to go on league and we're going to make progress. That's probably my biggest learning lesson from this, but I've also talked about a lot of them, how my exile was coming up because I covered my identity in the past, and how my manager was trying to put me onto some stupid fucking monk mode routines. And just because you have one conversation with yourself, change isn't going to be instant, but the thing is, you're going to notice these patterns within a few days, which people don't notice in decades, and I mean decades. You've probably heard of, or maybe you know them yourself, some people who are like 40, 50, 60 years old who are still running the same laps because they've never really figured out how to negotiate with themselves. So in a nutshell, just make sure all of your needs are met. So if you're trying to lock in, make sure you visit a friend once a week, or you have a phone call with 2 different friends twice a week, or something, whatever does it for you, right? We're all different. Whatever does it for you. Now you have all the information, you know it's not discipline and it's not motivation. You should have all the tools to align yourself to who you truly are. Anyway, respect for you to watching this video this far. If you want to make even faster progress than everyone else, I've opened up a few slots in my calendar. You can apply for a one-on-one mentorship. I don't say this to create some fake sense of urgency or like scarcity or some shit. I don't work with everyone. But if you want to check out if you're a fit or not, you can click the first link in the description right now and you can book a link with me to talk to me in my calendar. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.